for what we are about to receive. I give thanks now and gratitude, and so it is, Ashe.
All right. Yeah, truly grateful for each day, especially today. Right. Marlene shared 2 readings. Let me just read them one more time. First one is part of a longer story that you may have heard before in the Bible, John chapter 9. Really got to check out. It goes well through that chapter. but just the first 3 verses of it set the stage. And it says, as Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus. But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And the other reading comes from my favorite and yours, Course in Miracles. There's always a lot to unpack in the statements in that book. Here's just 2 sentences, and we're going to talk about it. You are a miracle, capable of creating in the likeness of your Creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Yeah, we've been talking this month about both sides of the coin. And sowing and reaping and the process of becoming, reciprocity. By far, one of the most powerful spiritual metaphors that we see in nature has got to be a caterpillar transitioning to a butterfly, right? To see a caterpillar start off earthbound, slow moving, fuzzy, I guess they're beautiful. I mean, I'm supposed to say that, so yeah. But then to transform, and then they go through the process, and they're in the cocoon, right? And then they're in the cocoon, right? And then something happens, and there's a mystery inside the cocoon. And then they come out, and now they can fly, and they're beautiful, and they're graceful. What a metamorphosis. I always wonder, though, do caterpillars know what they're in for? When I'm just born, I'm a caterpillar. I'm walking around on Earth. I mean, from observation, all we really know about caterpillars is that they really just do one thing, and that is eat. And of course, it's because they need the chlorophyll in the leaves, because that's going to be a part of the metamorphosis that helps them form the cocoon and a part of the process. But all they know is they just hungry, though. I wonder if they really know where they are heading. And then I wonder for us too. Do we really know what we are born to be? As a matter of fact, there is no such insect as a caterpillar. It's not one of the insects that you'll find on the list of insects. It is a larval form of a butterfly. It is a butterfly. It's just a butterfly in process. It's a butterfly that probably doesn't even realize that it's about to be a butterfly. Caterpillars don't come from caterpillars. Caterpillars come from butterflies. Then I think about us. We're walking around here, earthbound, slow moving. Some of us kind of hairy, fuzzy too. I guess I'm supposed to call you beautiful. I don't know. And I wonder, do we know where we're going. The fullness of it, of the, not even just the possibility, of the actual destiny and of the becoming. Because to call a caterpillar and say, yeah, you have the potential to be a butterfly, that's an understatement. You don't just have the potential to be a butterfly, you are on your way. Now, mind you, when I was in second grade, we found a cocoon attached to a little stick. Brought it back into the classroom, put it in a thing, and then a few days later, a moth emerges. And then we came back to school the next day and the moth was dead. But it did get to become. So the quality of life, now a moth, a butterfly, it could live anywhere from just a couple of days to several months. It depends on a lot of factors, but how long you get to be the moth, the butterfly, is not so important as the process of becoming one. And even if it's just for a short time, you got to fly, you got to spread your wings, you got to complete the metamorphosis. And so similarly, do we understand what we really are and where we are moving to? The caterpillar does not have to try to become anything. Couldn't you imagine there being an entire market in caterpillar world where caterpillars could attend workshops, caterpillars could pay for seminars, caterpillars could buy a box of CDs and they don't even have a CD player, to learn how to unleash their inner butterfly. And I would bet that the more they looked into all of that stuff and the more they paid and the more they tried, it would actually hinder the becoming on a cellular level. So here's what I'm talking about. You don't know where you're going, except you do know where you're going. The caterpillar doesn't know really. I mean, I don't know, but I would imagine it's just crawling around. All it knows is I'm hungry. I got to eat. I got to keep eating. I got to keep eating. It doesn't know what it's about to become, what it's about to transform into, what it's on its way to becoming. And perhaps we're not fully aware either of what we are becoming. Because even though they don't know, on some cellular level, they must know. They must be fully aware because it's in them. They can't do anything but kind of spin into a cocoon and then sit in the cocoon. And so they know, but they don't know. And so similarly, you don't know, isn't there always, how do I get there? How do I get to the enlightenment? How do I get to there's some cold flu, something going around this week, and everybody want to know, how do I get healed? Well, try some echinacea, try some honey. You need to go to sleep. You need to eat more. One person say you need to eat something. Some people say you don't need to eat nothing. One person said just lay still. The other person said get up and go sweat it out. Listening to y'all, I felt worse than. But then when I just sat still, I said, you know what? I said, I feel fine as long as I just lay perfectly still and breathe. this is a good story here with Jesus. It says he's going along, he sees a man who's born blind from birth. And his disciples asked him a question. Before I get into that, though, let me say this of what I'm actually talking about. Because the question that we always ask, like I said, how do I get well? So, okay, what did he preach about? He's talking about a caterpillar and a butterfly. So now he's about to tell us how to go from caterpillar to butterfly. But I think that's the wrong question. The question is not, how can I go from caterpillar to butterfly? Because you were already born for that metamorphosis. As a matter of fact, that metamorphosis is happening right now. We quoted the Course in Miracles. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is for people to come back to a fullness of a knowledge and understanding and being of who they are. And it says in the preface, everybody will take this course one day. It's just a matter of when you choose to take it. So it's not a question of how do I become that butterfly, but maybe the question is more like, what does it look like as I'm becoming what I am becoming? How do I know? Because we can get off track and the whole premise is wrong. In this story in John, the whole premise was wrong. It says they went along, they saw a man blind from birth, and the disciples asked Jesus, the man is born blind. Is he blind because he sinned, or is he blind because his parents sinned? And he says, see, you're asking the wrong question. Or the premise is off to begin with. What do I have to do to be the fullness, my best version of myself? Maybe the premise is off on that question. Because if I can just figure out what I need to do, don't you know, if we're talking about spiritual things, the word do in itself, anything that can be done or do, we're already talking about the natural physical world. This is where we do. But yet you're talking about what do I need to do to get more spiritual when the I am is the Spirit. But how do I get more spiritual? How can I be more loving when God is love and you are God? Yeah, I know, but how can I be more loving though? What do I have to do? What are the steps? And if I stood here and I said, I got 3 things you need to do to become more like God, everybody'd be like, the whole premise is off. Who sinned? Their understanding, their theology, their apologetic, their worldview, their consciousness of who God was and who they were in God was off base. Because they figured, dang, if somebody is born blind, it must be what he do that he ended up born blind. Kicked his mama too hard in the womb. That's what happened. You deserve it too, kicking me all hard. That's why you came out blind. Sounds crazy. But if somebody was told that from an early age and believed it, so that's easy to see. What are we believing that really sounds crazy? But I was told it for so long that, yeah, who sinned? Now, was it that he sinned, or was it because his daddy was out in the streets? Yeah, and his daddy couldn't stop looking at. God said, yeah, I know what I'm gonna fix him for looking all the time. I'm gonna make his child blind. And really believe that. What do you believe about your apparent lack of butterflyness? You as unbutterfly as a caterpillar. Yeah, that's true. But I just told you, a caterpillar isn't even a caterpillar. A caterpillar is a butterfly in the larval stage. It's on its way. It's happening, it's becoming, it's growing, it's living into. Who sinned? Was it the man? Or was it his parents that he was born blind? Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. Now that in itself is fascinating. Because when I asked us, what do we believe? Well, all have sinned. Everybody sinned. Ain't nobody perfect. I ain't perfect. But Jesus said they did not sin. They did not miss the mark. How often you do something or an outcome comes and, man, I missed the mark. I should have done better. But yet, don't you know that this is all unfolding just as it's supposed to? He said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. The man was born blind so that the works of God might be displayed in him. How did I end up just a black boy in Detroit? How did I end up in, not me, but fill in the blank. How did I end up in foster care? How did I end up daddy not around? How did I end up in extreme poverty? How did I end up with this disability, this handicap? God must not feel the same way about me that God feels about someone else. I ask you, what do you believe that is? Believe it, but it's really kind of crazy. Just as a caterpillar must become a butterfly, you must become I am. Now, how long is it going to take? When's the road? How long are you going to get to enjoy it? How long? What's stopping you? What's getting in the way? Don't you know, different caterpillars, they are all dealing with different, it's based off of their environment. But yet they still all have a way of becoming. You ever seen a caterpillar and it's so furry? It's just like fur all over it. And see, now if that was us, I'd go get some electrolysis. I'd get some wax. But don't you know that fur is there so that when they're moving all slow in their larval stage, other birds and other insects and bugs and animals that would eat them look at them and they say, I don't want all that fuzz. And that's literally what the other animals say. So what looks to you like, man, I got to do something about this fur, that's an exact part of God's design for the caterpillar's protection. There's one form of caterpillar, they live in the forest, and when they become the cocoon, by the way, they don't spin themselves into a cocoon. Do you know this? That a caterpillar sheds its skin, and when the skin sheds, the cocoon is what's left under the skin. So there's one, if they're in the rainforest, they hang the cocoon underneath a leaf and it comes out green. The cocoon is green so that the birds don't notice it. There's another place where the cocoon looks like a piece of bird poop, so that as animals are run by looking for something to eat, they just walk past it. So it's all, and that doesn't sound appealing, but it'll save your life. It's there for a purpose. Some of the demographic realities, some of the factual realities, some of the stuff, even when I look in the mirror, it doesn't seem perfect, but it's a part of the design and it's a part of the becoming. So, okay, so what does it look like? One, the process of becoming this butterfly, and again, it is not a process that now once I tell you what the process is, you're like, okay, good, now I'm going to go do that now that I know. This is happening. This can't not happen. And guess what? The process is ugly. When a caterpillar is in the cocoon, don't you know something called molting happens, where essentially the entire body melts down into what looks like just a pile of goop. If you were sad, but I've done it for science. If you took a cocoon halfway through its process and just cut it open, it would just spill out. Because that's what it looks like. It's in the midst of a process that by human standards is not always pretty, but guess what? Who has a lot of stock in human standards? So, okay, so by human standards, it's ugly. I'll take that, actually. By human standards, Jesus was one of the craziest ones ever to do it. I'll take those odds, though. And the process is ugly. For the man here, you probably heard this story before. So he says, okay, neither the man sinned, excuse me, nor did his parents sin. What did Jesus do with the brother? It says he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. It's probably a good thing the man was blind. Because if he had known, and see, do you see that though? How many things in life, the worst thing that could have possibly ever happened, the lowest thing that could have happened to me, ended up working out for the best. Man, I'm so glad I got fired from that job. But it takes a minute to get there. And it's a good thing I was blind at the time. Because if I had seen, I didn't know, but I can just know the process. So it's ugly for a caterpillar. It's ugly for this blind man. Jesus spitting on the ground. You know, I'll spare you the sound effects. Okay? Maybe as a younger preacher, I might have gone there, right? You got it. I'm mainly sparing because I'm in a healing myself, and it might sound a little too real, so we'll just hold off on that. All right. Don't you know, as you are in this process of becoming, people are not going to get it. So Jesus puts mud on the man's eyes, and he tells him, go wash in the pool. And the man went and washed. He came home seeing. Now, here's the other thing. It's bad enough or good enough becoming that butterfly, but then show up as a butterfly back to your old Caterpillar Club. They're not going to like it. I wonder about caterpillars. They probably think, I don't know what they think. Do they think, man, because we just all caterpillars here together, and then Fred disappeared. Fred died. I don't know where Fred went. Fred think he's too good. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what they're born for. And now Fred comes back and he says, excuse me, it's Frederick now. Frederick? That's Fred from the projects. Call me Frederick. Frederick? Don't you know? People aren't going to get the natural process of where not only are you going, but they're going the same place. We are born for this, yet as it's happening and unfolding, how could we know? Because of the blindness. Exactly where we're going. And his neighbors, and it says those who had formerly seen him begging. See, once people see you in one light, it's very hard for them to see you in another light. That's why on earth they say, go ahead and make a good impression. That's why I was standing up here in short sleeve shirts for a while, and then I switched it up, and someone said, why are you dressing different? I said, because people are shallow and they treat you nicer when you dress nicer. That's not a judgment on that. That's the truth. It says his neighbors, see, your neighbors, they think they know you. And those who had formerly seen him begging. See, they had seen him begging, and as long as he's begging, I can feel that much better about myself, because he's just a beggar. As long as he's a caterpillar, we all right. But now those who had seen him begging said, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claim that he was, and others said, no, that only looks like him. They couldn't stand it. That ain't him. That couldn't possibly be him. All he did was live into the process of what he must become. That's all you're doing, is becoming who you must become. And it's to the point where the Caterpillar Club can be so comfortable that when you start to break out and you start to stretch the wings, what the hell are you doing? Nothing. Also, we don't fly around here. That's right. Well, what else do you believe? Sounds good to human ears, but really it's kind of crazy. Right? So they say, he says, so some said, yeah, that's him. Some said, nah, that couldn't possibly be him. He said, no, I'm that guy. How then were your eyes open? And he replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Where is this man? They asked him. And he said, I don't know. It's a process. It's a series of steps. Everything is this way. In the civil rights movement, they would ask Dr. King, How do you expect to turn a nation around? A nation born in racism, Jim Crow, disadvantage, and you talking about freedom. That's a caterpillar to a butterfly, for real. How are you going to do that? What are the steps? What are you going to do? He said, look, I don't know. He had a quote. He said, I'm climbing a staircase in the dark. You don't have to see the whole staircase. He said, just take the next step. How are you going to fly? How are you going to deal with folks you can't deal with? How are you going to overcome the tax bill? How are you going to? I can go on, right? I don't know. But what I do know is, what is the next step I could take? I was feeling under the weather. How you going to get well again? But how you going to get well? I don't know. All I know is I feel great as long as I lay still and keep breathing. Well, I guess that's my next move. And you know your next move. Psalm 46 says, be still and know that I am God. You are the fulfillment. You are the fullness. You are the end result. Take a moment in stillness right now. Just like that caterpillar. There's something different about being alone. Folks will swear they can't sing, but when they're alone, what is that? Caterpillars will swear they can't fly, but when they wrap it up and they're alone, there's not a social pressure, there's not a collective miseducation. You don't know where you're going, except you do. A caterpillar doesn't know it's gonna fly, except it must. Because if it really didn't have the knowledge, it would not be able to achieve the process. Very little about that process resembles a butterfly. A caterpillar doesn't look like it. The outside of the cocoon doesn't look like it. The inside of the cocoon doesn't look like it. And then it's done. So it's not even a walk by sight of what it looked like, but it's a walk of the truth of who you are. You couldn't stay a caterpillar much longer if you wanted to. And it's not just a one-time life metamorphosis that we're waiting to happen. You are becoming. You are molting. You are being broken down and built back up at the same time. If you're moving slow, you're moving slow for a reason. If you got what seems like too much hair on you, it's for a reason. Too little hair too? Just as you are. Allow yourself, permit yourself to be, to become, and to soar. Amen, amen.